what I'd like to do now is to explain in more detail each of these 7 essential realities. I've explained a bit about the 3 different approaches to life. So now what I want to do is to explain a little more detail the qualities and nature of these 7 essential realities. And then when I've done that, then I'll discuss how the 3 different approaches to life relate to these essential realities. So we'll take it a step at a time. The first reality is authoritative guidance. It's key in life. We couldn't manage without it. In order to stand up, in order to act like a human being, in order to think consistently, in order to speak, even the accent that we have that we're speaking, everything is coming by guidance from people who are more or less authoritative in these fields. And when you want to get ahead in work, in professional field, you have to take authoritative guidance. Similarly, when we want to understand spiritual principles, then we need to get guidance from somebody who's more informed than we are, more realized than we are, who has the moods of absorption in spirit, the moods of service to the Supreme, like that. This is all different aspects of this principle of authoritative guidance. Authoritative guidance, if we didn't have it, we wouldn't be able to progress at all. We'd have to make everything up from the beginning. Human culture, depends on authoritative guidance. It's an accumulation of experience which is handed down from generation to generation, from master to apprentice. So it's a very essential part of life in all areas of life. It's a great gift. The challenge is that it's difficult to know who is authoritative or not. For example, if you want to take a degree course, if you want to get guidance in a particular area, then you have to know what's a good school, who's a good teacher, what's a good degree course to take, and it's difficult to know. This is a challenge. Who is trustworthy and who's not trustworthy? But behind that, there's the reality. Authoritative guidance is a fundamental reality. It's self-evident, and it's also self-validating. For example, supposing I say that, I can analyze authoritative guidance in a psychological way, we can analyze the person who's giving the guidance, we can talk about their brain states, we can talk about the mode of communication, and in this way we can break down authoritative guidance to more fundamental aspects. But that's also a form of authoritative guidance. When I say that, I'm setting myself up as an authoritative guide, and I'm giving guidance as to what you should think, what you should believe. So actually authoritative guidance is a fundamental, essential reality. It can't be denied. The Vedic tradition is completely based on authoritative guidance. For example, Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is on the battlefield and Krishna is his chariot driver. So Arjuna is looking at the other fighters, the other army on the battlefield, and he sees that everyone in his own army and in the other army, basically they're all related to each other. The friends, family members, his guru, his grandfather, they're all related, and he sees that if he's going to win the battle, he can only do so by killing his family members and those who are dear to him, those who are his worshipable superiors. So he decides that he can't fight, but then he understands that actually it's his business to fight, it's his nature to fight, because he's a righteous warrior. So then he turns to Krishna and he asks Krishna to give him guidance. So Bhagavad Gita is simply the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield, where Krishna is acting as guide to Arjuna, and in the course of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is explaining that actually he is the Supreme Personality, he is actually the source of all knowledge. Other scriptures as well, the other Vedic literatures, for example, Srimad Bhagavatam, it's all questions and answers. All of the Upanishads are questions and answers. Basically the whole of the Vedic literatures, it's all questions and answers from disciples to teachers, authoritative teachers. When we engage, or when we take advantage, take shelter of authoritative guidance. So the natural question is, what should I do? Like Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. What am I going to do? You please explain to me, what should I do? So this leads us on to the next essential reality, which is activity. Sanskrit, this is called karma. Usually when we hear about karma, we think, oh, that means it's the result of something that I've done in the past. But in the Sanskrit tradition, in the Vedic tradition, karma means the activity that we perform. So activity means that we're performing some kind of activity with the aim of achieving something which wouldn't happen by itself. It wouldn't happen spontaneously by the laws of nature. Nobody goes to great efforts to fall off a log. But we do go to great efforts to build things that the natural laws are fighting against. So there are phases in activity. Every activity is analysed in Bhagavad Gita. That activity, first of all, it begins with a plan, some kind of intention. Then there's the activity itself, and then there's the actual result of the activity. So there's these three phases. And any activity will have these three different phases. We have to, generally speaking, I mean, we don't always plan deliberately, but even if there isn't a conscious plan, there is some kind of conception, because we act according to a conception of life. So there's either a conscious or an unconscious planning or belief. And then there's the activity itself, and then we have the results, which may or may not be pleasing. There's a saying that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. So hopefully, when the results are not to our liking, then we'll learn to do better next time. And when they are to our liking, then we'll learn to repeat that. There's a learning process there. Groups and organizations are also a form of activity, but they're activity by a group of people rather than a single person. And conventional wisdom in business is that every group or every organization has three aspects. Just as for an activity, first of all, you have to have a plan, a goal. So a group or an organization is a goal-oriented entity. Basic principle of groups is that they act like entities. They act like individuals. And it's also common wisdom that you can have good people in a bad relationship. Good people can come together, and the organization that they form may not be as good as the people. Anyway, so it makes an organization in its own right. And one aspect of the organization is that it's a goal-oriented entity. Another aspect of the organization is the actual process that's going on within the organization. Communication, getting results, getting resources, doing the creation of the product, whatever it is. So there's a process within the organization, and this is the activity aspect. And then the third aspect is the results. Any organization must exist in order to fulfill the desires of someone, some stakeholder. It may be the managing director, it may be the workers, it may be the shareholders, but someone's got to be satisfied, otherwise the organization is not going to continue. So just as activity has three aspects, those three aspects are there in any organization as well. And then money, also I explained, is also a kind of activity. Money is a result of activity, generally speaking. I have money because I've performed some activity so that people have given me benefits which I'm now carrying with me. Money is a symbol of energy. And it's a subjective decision, it's a subjective value. We can see the stock market, for example. In a matter of hours, the value of money can reduce or increase dramatically. So it's an expression of trust, it's an expression of value, it's a result of activity. Generally, it's a result of activities that we performed in the past. It's an exchange between individuals, and it's an expression of value between individuals. Purposeful activity is a gift. If we were unable to act, it would be a desperate situation. We hear about ghosts. Traditionally, ghosts, they have subtle bodies, but they don't have gross bodies. So they're unable to act, and they're in intense frustration, whether we accept the existence or not, but that's an illustration. But where, for example, somebody has been in an accident and they're unable to act now, their physical ability is impaired, we take this to be a great tragedy. Like a friend of mine broke his back, fell from a roof and broke his back, and was paralyzed. And immediately you think, oh, very, very sad. Another friend who's in a swimming accident, broke his neck, and almost completely paralyzed. So in an instant, from being a very, very capable individual, very well-loved individual, like the life and soul of the party, it becomes helpless, totally helpless. And this is considered to be a great tragedy. It's a tragedy for other people, and it's a tragedy for the individual themselves. So purposeful activity is a great gift, and it's a challenge. It's like money. Money can be used for good, or money can be used for bad. A knife can be used for making a very nice vegetable preparation, or it can be used for killing somebody. So activity can be used for good, or it can be used for ill. This ability to act can be a great benefit, or it can be a curse. Somebody may act, for example, in a crime of passion. So somebody in a fit of rage, or they may kill somebody that they dearly love, and then they'll regret it for the rest of their lives. So it can be this challenge. To understand how to act is a great challenge. And the reality behind activity, we are the conscious self within the body, and the conscious self manipulates the body through the life airs, through very subtle currents of energy in the body. And according to our conception of life, we engage in different kinds of activities. Harmonious activity, passionate activity, apathetic, destructive activity. Activity, according to the materialists, is simply an automatic... when physical organisms become very complex, then they get the ability to act. You get nervous system coming together as a result simply of chemical and electrochemical reactions in the body. And activity is an automatic response to the environment, plus the sum of all the impulses within the organism. So there's no particular meaning. There's no such thing as intention. There's no such thing as design. There's no such thing as meaning. But this statement, this belief, invalidates itself. Because in that case, the person who's saying that, there's no meaning in their statement. And they can't say that there's any design or any intention in their statement without contradicting themselves. So it's self-evident to us, I did this. Even scientists who are trying to validate these materialistic ideas, they become very excited when there's a prospect of getting a Nobel Prize, when they're recognized as the individual who performed some particular scientific activity and is now being recognized for it. Everywhere in society there's recognition for outstanding performance, and the understanding that person has achieved something and they should be recognized. Conversely, if somebody performs a bad activity, a crime, then they're punished, and it's reckoned that the person who did that deserves to be punished, whether it's to teach them a lesson, or whether it's simply a matter of punishment, or whatever the philosophy of punishment is. But the person who did it is the person who gets the reaction, either a good reaction, a beneficial reaction, or a bad reaction. So everywhere we're recognizing the purposeful activity based on intention. Even in the law court, they're interested in finding out what was the intention behind a particular act. If somebody may kill someone, he may be committed for murder, or he may be committed for manslaughter, may be committed for what? Accidental, I don't know what the terms are, but so the intention, the question is, what was the intention? And the penalty will depend on the intention. Similarly, the reward will depend on the intention. Organizations also have these three phases. They consider they're dealing with the goals, with the process, and with the results. So it's a collective response to three questions. An organization is a collective response to three questions. What, how, and why. What means, what is the goal? What is the intention? What is the plan? What are we trying to achieve? How refers to the process by which we achieve it. And then Y refers to the motivation, the satisfaction of the individual members or individual stakeholders in the organization. The world itself we can see that it's designed, the universe is designed. Mathematically, it's impossible for such a universe with the physical constants so closely closely tuned to each other. It's impossible that such a thing, or inconceivable, that such an entity, such a universe could have appeared automatically or accidentally. So we understand that it's also a product of design. Well, when there's design, then there's intention. So then we can ask, what is the intention behind the universe? What's the intention behind the world? Arthur Young, the inventor of the helicopter, he said that the world, that activity is a fundamental element. So the world is actual action. The world itself is action. We think about the laws of nature. It's not that the laws of nature are turned on and then they act automatically. That the basis of the laws of nature is consciousness. Means that the laws of nature are being maintained, consciously maintained, second by second, nanosecond by nanosecond. So in a very real sense, the world is activity. It is conscious activity. And we need to consider what is the design, what is the intention behind the universe. So all the wisdom traditions, spiritual traditions, say that the world exists so that we can understand that I am not this material body, I am not a material physical being, I am a spiritual being. And very often we have to learn through suffering that I'm not a spiritual being, that my tendency is towards bliss, but I'm constantly getting suffering. So now I have to learn the spiritual process to realize my spiritual nature and rise above the limitations of changing inner matter. This is the design, and as much as possible we should try to live in harmony with that design, and we should help others to live in harmony with design and provide facility for them as well. The Vedic background, the understanding is that the conscious self within the body gets the results of its activities, good karma, bad karma. That if we perform sacrifice doesn't just mean giving up. Sacrifice means sakar, fakir, to make sacred. So sacrifice means acting in harmony with the desires, with the sacred desires of the Supreme Personality, acting in harmony with the beneficial instructions of the authoritative, of our authoritative guides, maybe authoritative scriptures, direct instructions from the Supreme Personality, like in Bhagavad Gita, or from spiritual teachers. If we act in order to fulfill our material desires, this leads to bondage. It's gratifying initially, but it leads to bondage. Like, extreme example, an alcoholic taking I'll just have another little drink. So this is actually, it's increasing the weight of the chains of his bondage. So similarly, we're actually addicted to matter. And every time that we act to fulfill our material desires, we're simply increasing our bondage to matter. So there's karma, which means activity which is in harmony with the divine principles. And then there's bad, vikarma, means activities which are against divine principles. I mean, in a religious sense, you say sinful activities. It means activities which lead to karma, which pulls us down into material nature. And then there's transcendental activities which liberate us from karma altogether. So in the Vedic literatures, the prescription is dharma. Dharma is a word meaning, sometimes it's called religion, but it really means constitutional occupation. So there's the dharma for different people. I mean, different occupations have particular dharma. They have their constitutional occupation. But deeper than that, it's understood, the final message of the Vedic literature is that the dharma of the conscious self is to serve the Supreme with love. This is the actual Dharma for everybody. One may have different occupational duties according to one's position in life, but the spiritual self, the conscious self, in every case, not only in human beings, but in animals, plants, everything, the ultimate Dharma, the ultimate constitutional occupation of the spiritual self is to serve the Supreme Self with love. Not in like wretched slavery and bondage, but in love. What's the connection with the next reality? We perform activity in order to achieve a particular result. And there are different types of activity. There are different phases in any achievement. So this is what I want to look at now. How we can perform characteristic activities, activities which we're particularly suited in a cooperative way to achieve something which individually we would have found it very difficult to achieve.